We headed down the Yukon highway to Carmack's, where I soon found myself riding in the back of a police car. Turns out our host John was a Mountie, and he took us out for lunch and entertained us with stories between runs to trap and release bears and escort town drunks out of the street. James changed his rear tire out for a spare he'd been carrying since Anchorage, and the next morning we set off towards Whitehorse to find one for me. I stopped in at the Yukon Motorcycle Center, who was one of the friendliest shops I've ever encountered, and after searching unsuccessfully through their own stock, called every shop in town to try to find me an 18-inch rear tire. No one had one, so the owner came out and inspected my tire. He said he'd ride it another 1,000 miles, but he also fancied himself a risk-taker. With his blessings, we hopped on the Alaska Highway, hoping it would hold out to Prince George. We stopped over in Watson Lake to check out the signpost forest. It's a cool place to walk around, with thousands of signs from all over the world. I'd heard about the signpost forest before the trip and brought the license plate from an old bike Zeb to post up. He had been a great bike to me, and we had done many fun adventures, from sand dune climbing in Mexico to seeing my first glaciers in Jasper and Banff. He had sadly perished in the accident that broke my arm, and I thought it would be a fitting memorial to carry his plate with me on the trip and hang him there. We continued south on the Cassiar, which was surprisingly rough for a major highway. Apparently, they're installing new power lines, and for some reason this meant removing 15-foot sections of the road and replacing them with gravel pits. We were once again glad to have our small dirt bikes as our rear tires drifted over each gravel stretch. At least we were surrounded by lush forests and bright blue lakes to take our minds off the terrain below us. On the recommendation of my buddy Luke, we turned off on the Hyder Spur, and it ended up being the best riding of the trip that far, and we both agreed the most beautiful ride either of us had done in our entire lives. The spur is 30 minutes of paved twisties through the mountains, with rivers, glaciers, and waterfalls everywhere you look. Before you know it, though, you're back in Alaska. If you continue through the town of Hyder, you'll hit a bear viewing station that even has motorcycle parking. It's only $5 to walk along the viewing platform, and the rangers there said they see bears almost every day. On this particular day, a black bear was fishing right nearby. We got an up-close and personal view of her balancing on logs and hunting for fish. Eventually, she disappeared back into the bushes, and we got back on our bikes and took the gravel road deeper into the park. This ride takes you up into the mountains on the edge of a massive cliff. Up so you are actually looking down on the massive and breathtaking Salmon Glacier. Usually I prefer riding loops, but this was one spur I was happy to backtrack on, since the ride out offered a different but just as wonderful perspective on the never-ending, mind-blowing scenery. Hyder Spur is not to be missed.